Okay, so we are going to come back into public.
Madam Chair, I would move to seal the minutes to the recently concluded non-public session until such time as a majority of the board feels it is wise and prudent to unseal them, with the exception of passing the information to the bookkeeper and HR on those matters.
Second.
Second by Larry. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
All right, our next item is fire rescue station sprinkler system update. We can have our construction manager come up and
Mike Pavero, Construction Manager, Eastern Seaboard. Not much of an update. Brian Carter, Sprinkler, is working on the design.
do we have an E ETA?
No. No, I talked to him, I think it was yesterday morning, and he got the CAD files from, the existing CAD files from FSC, and he got them last week, so they're starting the design process. I have no idea. I mean, at this point, there's nothing going on out there till spring.
That's what I
Our window of
figured.
construction is done for this season, so it won't be till after the winter that any work gets started out there, so.
But we anticipate the design and
I asked
potentially
him for the
ordering.
design, I asked him for the design and a hard number, because the number was predicated on some variables, which is what we looked at, I don't know, a month or so ago, to have that done before the middle of December.
Okay.
So hopefully we'll have that in the next month, so before the end of the year, we know what that hard number is, which will give you guys time to find out what the deficit will be between the bond and what we're gonna need.
For me, I think we need to let them know that needs to be a hard deadline, because we're talking about using 2019 funds.
And I told him
It-
that.
It really, we really need to have a hard deadline.
Okay.
And in middle of December might be a little too soft for a hard deadline. We might, we might need to tell them December 1st, because if we have any slip there, we have plenty of time to get it under the wire, you know?
I mean, construction manager, I can make the call. If you want to have a little more teeth in it, one of the Board of Selectmen sent Carter Sprinkler a letter or memo to that effect that you need it for budgeting reasons. I mean, I'll pass it along to him, but it wouldn't
Yeah,
hurt to
right,
have
right.
a letter from the board.
You might want to have the chair do that. You know, where I'm going with this is, we obviously still have money in the bond. We still have interest from the bond. So we have these things that we can use next year. We have flexibility with those. We don't have flexibility with 2019 funds if we want to use that to make up some of the deficit. So I think the more hard stuff we have right now, whether we encumber it or whatever, we need that. So maybe we just need a, you know, friendly email letter to the contractor saying this is what we're up against, so,
Yeah, and I'll call him tomorrow and tell him December 1,
yeah,
but send a letter to follow.
cool. Everybody all right with that?
Yeah,
I have one other thing for this. Building inspector issued a one-year temporary certificate of occupancy for the fire department, fire station.
excellent.
Expiration of,
1 year,
from
today.
today, okay.
So this way, we don't have to worry about in 90 days getting another one.
Right.
All right, good. Thank you.
Okay.
I'll throw in there an update, which is not really an update, kind of an update, but Diane's gonna receive in her inbox an email from SFC Engineering. You know, in the interest of transparency, I called Jeff Murphy today and I said, we've heard that Kingston also has a issue with their sprinkler system on their fire station. Their old fire station, as I did not realize, but I was corrected on that. Apparently, these things are common. They have apparently received a waiver from the fire marshal for that old fire station because they have 24-hour coverage, I guess. So I basically said, what is that? What can we learn from that, essentially? And what, again, everything's going to be in an email directly to the board, but what he's saying is, because that's an old fire station, they intend on leaving as soon as they build the new one. They were given a waiver by the state fire marshal. So we obviously make the decisions, but he's going to advise us that we probably don't want to pursue this, to essentially ask the state fire marshal to waive a sprinkler system for a new construction. Not waive an entire sprinkler system, but as we know, an upgraded sprinkler system. So the board will have some information from that engineer for us to make a decision on, but I know there's been rumblings about what's going on in Kingston, so just sharing that with the board, that's what I know, and more to come on that.
Okay, sounds good. Okay, so our next item is health insurance premium cost for 2020.
Yep, you've got the paperwork in your folder that needs to be signed to renew for 2020 our health and dental and short-term disability.
So increase, decrease, static.
It had a little bit of an increase, but for the board's information, we've downsized in the last 2 years, and this isn't that much of an increase considering how many employees actually take the health insurance. The medical went up 7.4 and the dental went up 3.9. And off the top of my head, I know a lot of them take the buyout. So there's probably maybe 5 of us that take the medical, and I'm not sure how many take the dental.
All right. So the rates from January 1 to December 31 of 2020. Single, 850.02, two persons, 1,700.04, family, 2,295.06. And then I'm guessing the second one is the dental,
Yep.
and that's 661.28. Oh, no, that's not the dental. Not sure what that one is, but that's for single. And then the dental is $42.87 for single, $82.46 for two-person, and $144.58 for family.
And just keep in mind, the employees all pay 25%.
Exactly.
Does
So
that need to be signed and returned?
it does,
Move to have the chair sign the,
and it would just be chair. The health trust agreement.
thank you.
Do I have a second?
Oh, second.
All right, seconded by Matt. He beat you to it. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. That is unanimous. All right, our next item, the 2020 proposed budget. We're going to start with Highway Department.
Good evening, Board. Mike Pavero, Road Agent. Pretty simple on my end. I've kept the same funding for 12 years. At some point in time, it's going to need to go up. This year, the only thing I'm increasing in is the increase in salary. Everything else is staying the same.
All right, I think I ask this every time, but let's be clear here. So year-to-date variance, I'm showing negative numbers on several. So we've overspent.
We've overspent some of the line items, but we still have,
Here, we still have that amount available. So, for example, under salaries, the budget is 60,000, year-to-date expense is 52, the variance is
Which
8,600.
page are you on? Second
This is
page?
second
Yeah.
page. So that's an example. So while it looks like a negative because of the parentheses,
Yeah,
that's how much is still available in that balance.
all right, so that's, the international sign of a deficit is parentheses
Yes, I
around a
know.
number. So it looks like we've only overspent 2 accounts, and it looks like a few $100s.
No, one's
No,
more.
equipment
Sorry, one-
rental was
equipment, yeah.
over expended for summer, but I'm guessing it's being offset by the fact that because we haven't really hit winter yet, so you might still hit your winter rentals.
Yep.
Your sand salt line is still
But
in the
paving,
plus. Yeah, I haven't done my paving yet, scheduled for next week,
okay,
so that's gone.
all right, so if we're over expended 38,000, where is it being offset? Do we know?
It's not over expended, that's what he has
There's
left.
nothing over expended. There's a line item,
no,
there's a line item that's over, but my bottom line budget is still at 87,000 plus.
Equipment rental summer,
Uh-huh.
budgeted 56,000, expended 94,000. Means that line item is over expended 38,000,
That is correct.
which means it would be offset by another line item in the budget in order to remain the same. And that's why I was wondering if maybe it was being offset by, say, the paving, which had that amount, or
No, it's
equipment rental
multiple- it's
winter.
multiple line items that we haven't used yet.
Okay,
Engineering, I mean, you can go through the sheet and go through the whole breakdown of it right there, but no, it'll be multiple line items that we haven't used, and at this point, late in the season, we won't use.
okay, sounds good. That was the only one I was concerned because of the large value of over expenditure. It's just making sure there's something in there that's going to offset it.
My job is to make sure that bottom line doesn't get overspent, and I've done it for 12 years, so
Yep.
we'll
Yep,
just
and you've done
maintain
a
that.
good job of it.
I hope I'm past the math class.
So, so you said earlier, and, you know, we've had this discussion before, it has to change at some point,
Yeah.
and what is that point for you? I mean, realizing that if we gave you an extra 100 grand, you would never say no to it, you know? But
You wouldn't even see me blink if you told me 100
ex-
grand.
Exactly.
It comes down to, and this isn't the only town, local, state, or federal level. Highways and roads deteriorate at a rate you cannot maintain. So if we do I won't bore you with the calculations, but if I take the miles of road in town, based upon the average life expectancy of the road, I should be rebuilding 1 mile of road a year. I do a quarter of that.
Yeah.
I'm never gonna catch up. It is what it is. And I can stand here and plead my argument all I want that I need more money. Yeah, we'll take more money, but whatever that amount of money is, I'm still not gonna get to the threshold that I need to be at to maintain the roads in a proper fashion. So that's why I and you and all of us here ask the residents and people in town to be tolerant of some of the road conditions, because we just do not have the funds to get them to the state that we'd like to see them at.
Because my thing is, I think I mentioned it last week when we talked about budgets, is I'm very concerned about police, fire, and highways in terms of continuing to stay flat on their budgets every year. I'm kind of like Mike did here. I'm not saying let's increase the bottom line number that rolls out for the whole town, but what I'd like to see us do as we go on here and calculate these proposed budgets is find a way to up police, fire, highway, because I think if we had to, no offense to anybody else in the town, but if we had to think in terms of priority departments, services to the residents, those would be in no particular order, my 1, 2, and 3. So I think it's worth, I'm glad you said, you know, we're at about a quarter a mile a year, essentially is what you're saying. You know, that
So
might be.
we're at 25% of what we should be trying to hit on an annual basis to try to keep the quality of the roads and infrastructure to where it needs to be.
That to me is a formula I can look back on, because could we ever get to 30, 35%? You know, that would help us.
Yeah, whatever the plus is on, going up on the percentage certainly
Yeah.
helps. Are we ever, we could beat it to death here. Are we
Yeah.
ever gonna get to that 100%
Yeah,
level?
probably not.
We won't, and the federal government won't.
Right, right.
Just
So-
won't happen.
But, and I don't usually advocate for this, but for the highway department, I feel I have to. Where you did expend more under your cold patch line item and under your equipment rental, I'm assuming this isn't a unexpected, you spent more than you anticipated, but you potentially will have that same sort of increase and covering it under other line items next year. Would that sound about right? So,
The equipment rental went up proportionally and percentage-wise a little higher than normal because the vehicle that I get from the DRMO, which was the federal truck that I'd have to, I'm gonna guess standing here, that we've had for 7 years, that we get from the federal government for nothing, is worn out. It's junk. We need another one. So to offset that, it had to come back out of a rental cost for a truck to cover that. So we went 7 years with, other than putting fuel into that truck and maintaining it, no cost to the town.
right, but you haven't replaced or gotten another federal truck or anything else, so that rental will likely remain about the same for next year, correct?
Yeah, we need to get back and get that federal stuff again, but, and not to muddy the waters right now, that has to go through law enforcement, and law enforcement needs its hand, literally, its hands uncuffed to go do that.
Okay, so that's why I'm saying, I think it would be prudent to actually propose an increase to that line item.
I won't stand here and argue an increase. I mean, I won't.
Anyone else disagree with me?
I'm not saying I agree or disagree. I think the way I'm looking at all of these budgets we're looking at right now is like this. These are notes to take
Yeah.
in the back of our mind for when it really gets down to dollars and donuts and whatever that is.
This will be in 4 or 5
January.
weeks.
Yeah,
We've got time to go through this. and
yeah,
reflect on it and see if there is a potential of increase in some of the line items.
But
'Cause
that's
that-
kind of what we're supposed to be doing right now.
Well, what I've said in the past is we really don't have firm figures right now. We have present day, but there's more to come. And the other thing is too is I prefer, if we're doing increases, we look at the whole budget, which we're only a few budgets in. But if we were to come back and say, okay, look, we looked at the whole budget, there's room to increase highway, that's when we say, Mike, where would you recommend? What line item do we increase? And that's when Mike has, you probably carries it around in the back of his mind as to exactly what, if I had the option, this is what I'd increase, you know?
And then you have the other side where we have historically, on more than one occasion, taken the proposed budgets from departments and gone back and asked them to trim 1%, 2%, whatever the percentage may be, all departments.
That's
So
probably
it-
going to happen again, I would think.
And this is my point. So if he's already proposing a budget that is so tight it can't go anywhere, then the proposal should be a little more reflective. And that's why I'm thinking even to accept a proposal, we should be accepting a little more in that line item. This is just what I'm saying. I mean, that's, a huge difference between what was budgeted and what was spent, which is I mean, there's a very good reason for it. You know, there's a truck that failed, which caused us to have to rent a truck that we weren't expecting. But
Can
we
I-
also know we're gonna have to rent next year.
Well, as we're standing there having this meeting, yeah, I don't have the capability of going into the DRMO like I did in the past. If we open that up, that stuff's sitting in lots all over the government. Sitting in the dirt, nobody's using it.
Okay, so why don't you have access to the DRMO anymore?
It's gotta go through law enforcement. Chief Jewett's the administrator of that. I was the facilitator of that. But, and again, I don't wanna muddy it in this conversation. He needs free rein to do that. It can't be a time limit in an approval process. When something comes up on a screen, he's gotta hit it, tag it, and it's gotta go through 5 levels of approval. And at one point in time, the board wanted to find out what he was gonna go get before he could go get it. It doesn't work. It's a time element. That comes up on a screen, you tag it first. If you miss that, and I mean miss it, you could miss it by 12 hours, it's gone.
Yep. No, I understand that, and you're talking about free equipment, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, I'm not sure about a board request to know what he's going after if there's no costs involved. You know, I would think that he could go get, just like the sign. He came to us and said, you know, and all we did was accept it.
That was a while back. That was months and months and months ago. I think it might have been right after the boat incident. There was some conversation about let the board know before equipment is acquired.
And there, to use your example, the tractor, there was a tractor, I think. He
Maybe.
had picked up the
Maybe.
phone
I
and called me
don't-
and said,
Yeah.
hey, I think I have a tractor for the transfer station. I said, sounds good, it's free. By the time he went back, it was gone, so.
Yeah, and it's a simple procedure, but he needs to be the judge, jury, and executioner on that screen, because he won't have time to come back and
He doesn't have
ask
a
the
week or 2
questions.
weeks or 3 weeks to wait for an approval.
All right,
We
well,
d-
if that's the case,
I think we
probably
have to make
Diane
it
reach
clear.
out to him tomorrow.
Yeah, I agree.
Oh.
We need to make that clear, that if there's no cost involved, he shouldn't be waiting for approval from the board
Exactly.
to get it.
Should go straight for it.
Is there anybody else who disagrees?
I don't remember that meeting, so I don't remember voting on it.
I don't either.
I don't think we ever voted on anything. I just don't think we were ever clear. I think we were, we had concerns, I don't know, maybe about where we're gonna store things or something like that, but
It might have been, yeah.
I think we could, tonight, we could make it clear in the minutes that, like Mike's, I hate to say it this way, he's, not free rein, he's empowered to commit to these things based on his best judgment, I think is what we're
He's
trying to say.
empowered and encouraged.
Yeah.
I would agree. All
Yeah,
right,
we-
so,
We should have a problem of, gee, we got a free D9, where are we gonna park it?
yeah, in worst case scenario,
Well, we already
we
have
did
that problem,
something
because
and
I already
figured-
got a 7. It's
Oh,
sitting down
okay.
at the transfer station. It has been for 6 years, 7 years.
Okay, but
Okay.
back to my whole equipment rental summer, my problem is that because the truck is dead, summer equipment rental went up.
Yeah.
The truck's not replaced, there's no guarantee the truck is going to be replaced before summer, which means the summer rental will, you already know
Is-
it's gonna be higher.
Mhm.
So to accept this budget to be included in the draft, it just makes no sense to me, since we already know that there is going to be an increase. We may not know how much, but we should at least anticipate something of an increase in that line item, because we know it's going to happen.
Can I suggest something?
Yes,
Not to throw your theory way out of whack.
but
Can we address this again in 4 weeks when I get a little farther through the winter?
we
Because
can.
if my winter, 50% of my budget is Mother Nature driven.
Right,
Don't know what it's gonna do until Mother Nature throws it at me. So let's just see what happens in the next 4 or 5 weeks we get into the December. If there's a better, and I no promises, there's a better chance than my winter equipment number still has money left in it to offset the summer. I mean, that's the shell game. I've had this, I
Yeah,
told you
but
guys.
that's this year.
I paid more, no, but alls I gotta do is to make it December 31st.
Right, I'm talking about for your budget next year.
Again, I no crystal ball. And again, I don't wanna stand here, people are thinking I'm crazy. It's like I wanna take money. It's not that I don't or do wanna take money, it's just I have to see how it lays out. If I have an easy winter, like I did a few years ago, I can pay more footage of road.
Right.
It's all it comes down to. I get X amount of money to use, it's a small budget. I said at the beginning of this, at some point in time, we have to increase it. I'm not saying it has to be increased right now, but at some point in time, it has to start going up. So can we just sit on this for like, 3 or 4 weeks?
All right, we also.
Look at it again?
Since you would like us to sit and look at it later, okay.
Let's see what happens.
Might I suggest that we review it once it's included in the budget?
Yes, I agree.
To which end I would move to include the draft of the highway department budget in the draft town budget.
Second.
All right, seconded by Matt. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
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 As they say in the cop shows, don't leave town.
No?
Yeah. We're going to need that info in 4 weeks, so don't leave town.
All right, and now from our tree warden, we have a tree warden budget.
That's under highway, it's right after, it's on the same thing, same tab as highway.
Care of trees. So we haven't had to care for any trees yet this year? That's a good thing.
Well, we have not had a care for trees, and sadly, what I had that slated for at the beginning of this year died on the vine again, which would have been Gale Village Road. So that's buried and put a pitchfork in it, never to be revisited again.
Right.
So next year, I will target that for a different project.
Okay.
And the only trees we cared for was 2 weeks ago during that windstorm.
Wasn't that on Gale Village too, Mike?
Yeah, there was a few.
Those trees are bad.
Oddly enough, none of the ones I had red flagged,
Oh, no.
but it was on Gale Village. Yeah,
But
that road was shut down.
those costs will be reflected in here, right? Later?
The storm,
The trees that you had to clear out?
I don't know, we can talk about that. I usually, and I do have it in my highway budget, there's a storm line item. We don't budget any money on that line item, because again, we don't know what storms we're gonna get. So you'll see at the next meeting, when it has an updated budget, yeah, we had 4.5 days of dealing with trees and limbs and brush and,
Right, with all the high winds and...
yeah, it was, I mean, don't hold me to this number, but I bet you it's $6,000 or $7,000 we spent doing that over that period of time, plus the day of the storm and the night of the storm.
Okay, and again, this budget is because you can't anticipate what kind of tree care you need to do or how much within that year.
No, and the
We don't
$3,000
have it.
$3,000 for tree care,
Yeah, it's not a lot of
One
money.
tree, right?
one tree, yeah, one good-sized tree, that's all done.
Yep.
All right. So, can I get a motion?
I'll move to include the draft care of trees budget in the draft town budget.
Second.
Second by Matt. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
And then we have building departments.
Who did their budget this year?
That's it, you're done.
You're done?
Thank you.
Who did the
Thank
building
you.
Thank you.
budget?
We haven't really, we figured the board may want to look at this one, whether you do it tonight or just peruse
Yeah.
it.
This
So-
one, I think, will need to be looked at again
Status quo.
later, and
Yeah.
Yeah.
I would suggest we just accept.
Just,
proposed.
I would move to accept the draft building department budget into the
Second.
draft, 2020 draft budget, town draft budget, sorry.
All right, second by Larry.
Diane
Any
knows.
discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye? Opposed? Okay. Unanimous.
So before we get off the budgets, Matt had asked that I talk with DRA about a special fund account. So they're in your shared, there's a memo in there with my discussion with the Department of Revenue. And also in there is the request Matt had for the welfare budget and looking back 5 years to look at some of the things that weren't expended.
So I was reading this,
First thing, is that special account information?
Yes.
yeah, so I was reading this and maybe I wasn't eloquent in describing. What I was basically talking about is we have a general government in buildings fund, right?
Right.
That could be an 8 Merrimack Road building, it could be here, it could be the library, right? But we have one fund.
Or
What I
a
was,
line item, right? Yeah, or a
Well,
budget item, I should
a
say.
budget item, yeah.
Okay, not a fund,
So-
but a budget item.
So what I'm talking about is, let's say, whatever it is, and I'm just throwing it out there because I know it's in everybody's budget, but I would never go for this, but office supplies, for example. Everybody's got an office supply line item. What if we collected all the office supply line items and moved them to one town office supplies? So if ZBA used less paper or whatever one year, we'd have it for planning board when they used more. So that's essentially what I'm saying is we should consider some of these consistent line items that go unused. We should look at perhaps capturing those in a different budget item because we would have, I would think, flexibility to expend those based on what comes along during the year, is what I'm saying. The only question I have from this write-up, though, is it says, DRA said that RSA 3210 allows you to transfer an unexpended balance from one budget to another as long as that amount does not exceed the total amount appropriated at town meeting.
Meaning the bottom line budget of that budget. You can't take from a budget if you've already depleted it.
Okay, so let's say, for example, planning board had $10,000 left in their budget. We, as a board of selectmen, could take that $10,000 and give
apply
it to the fire department.
Yep, we did that last year. We took
Yep.
money from legal as well as transfer station.
Yeah, I just wanted to be clear on
Yeah.
that. So this is a good
And-
info for
And as
future.
far as your example of the office supplies, the problem with that, I mean, Diane does try and check with all the departments to see what they want for office
Yeah,
supplies.
I'm, like I said in my example, it's
Right.
got nothing to do
But
with office
it would be the
supplies.
same thing with legal. You had mentioned at the last meeting, taking legal out of every budget. What DRA's chart of accounts require, and that's what these budgets show, is you need to have all those things in each budget so each department can operate on their own.
Right.
You
I'm-
start lumping them all together, now you don't have a true picture of what it costs each of your departments to run.
You do if you drill down and see who expended what.
Yeah, but then everybody's got to go through the Board of Selectmen for approval to spend, and Diane or somebody's got to have to make, it's just kind of
Yeah,
different. We're talking so little in each of these budgets.
I don't
it would
agree
be
with that.
more
I
work.
think there are some line items which would equate to enough money that it would be worth an extra step.
Maybe you could point out which ones, and we can
Legal
look
is
at.
one of them.
Yeah, I mean, our legal isn't that much, and I know planning board has a little more in their legal budget, but
Right.
I don't know what they face.
Yeah.
But most of them are
But
pretty
that tends to be the one at the end of the year I always see the surplus in, you know.
That's because,
You don't know.
quite honestly, certain departments make an effort not to expend it.
Sure.
But we know, simply from not distant past experience, that $4,000 could disappear
with one case.
Yeah, with one developer being unhappy.
Yeah. But we could also, as this said, we could move unexpended balances from one to another if we
You can.
needed
At the
to.
end of the year, you can vote to do that. You
Right.
have every right to do that.
Yeah.
So anyway, I just wanted
By
to
the
bring
way,
that
I-
up.
Okay.
I wanted to thank Diane for the 5-year comparison on the welfare budget.
That
Oh, that
wasn't
was Kim.
Diane, that was Kim.
That was Kim.
Oh, okay. We had been discussing the possibility of, combining or doing away with the fuel assistance and the rent mortgage line. And honestly, if you go back 2 years, we expended just over 11,000. Those lines right at the moment have 12,000 and some change in them. If you look at the history, it seems to go up and down.
Well, the thing is once you, if you were to zero it out, you'd have trouble getting it back in there. If you had a bad year,
Right.
as DRA said, you've got to pay for these things.
Mm-hmm.
And you have every right, if there's monies available, to take it and apply it to something else at the year end.
So what I'm doing here, I don't know if this is going to work, but if you look at like line 9, rent mortgage,
Yep.
in column H, you could actually do a formula where you take the average of all the expenditures for the past 5 years, and you arrive at a number. That's how I would budget, rounding up to the nearest hundreds or whatever.
But the problem with the rent and mortgage, you could pay $1,200 one time on somebody's rent, because that's what the rent goes for.
Right.
So it wouldn't be maybe 2 or 3 people, it'd be spent, and like I said, Tina's very good about trying to get them to go to other places to get help from them first.
But we only know what we know, and we know what we've spent. Granted, it's fluctuated, but we know what we've spent the last 5 years, so that's data that can steer us in a certain direction.
Right, but if you were to budget the average of those 5 columns,
Yep.
you would end up with an extreme with a budget number that is extremely below what the E column says.
You're actually looking at $15,000 in this budget. The rest of it's salary. So it's not much to play with.
Yeah, what I'm what I'm getting at here is, and I've been on the board for 5 years, I see a lot of the same, every year it's the same budget with a lot of, as I said last meeting, we have this here just in case, and that's the number we always have. It's just there in case. And I'm saying we need to be a little more data-driven. I realize nobody has a crystal ball, but we do have data, so we can, give it a little more of, what we've actually spent and see where we can go from there, because I think that's going to help us arrive at the bottom line number that we need to, because I just think, like I said, nobody has a crystal ball, but I'm foreseeing a tough budget season on this ballot.
Oh, definitely.
I just have a feeling that whatever we propose is going to have a hard time passing.
However, in this budget, quite honestly, One of the things that was floated at the last meeting was combining lines 9 and line 6. That's the fuel assistant and the rent assistant. Look at 2017.
Exactly.
If you had averaged those two lines out and only budgeted the average, in 2017, we would have had the welfare agents sitting here going, I can't say publicly who it's for, but we have literally spent the entire budget on those two lines. And now we need additional assistance.
I think you also have to look at all of the budgets as far as, just because these have zero amount spent out of them, in my opinion, that's a good thing, because that means that she is getting help other places. You've got other budgets, so if you look at their line items, they're overexpended, or they've just about depleted their budget. Doesn't mean they needed all the stuff they bought that year, but because they expended it all, it makes it look like they're doing a good job on their budget.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not saying it's not a good thing. Underspending your budget is a good thing. I'm just talking about getting a proposed budget over the goal line.
Well, I
Is what
think
I'm
we need,
However, in this instance, we're talking about reducing $12,000 to something maybe in the $600 to $6,500 range. Okay, we just saved $6,000 off the bottom line of the budget.
Everything adds up.
That's not a penny on the tax rate.
All right, I'm looking at utilities general assistance. Not including this year because it hasn't finished yet, but the average for the 4 years prior is $622.42.
Right.
That's for utilities?
Yes, for assistance with utilities. The average is $622. So had we budgeted based on average, we would have been over $1,000 under budget.
Right, because
For
right at
this
the moment
year.
we have 1,800 budgeted and they've spent 17.
Correct. The rent mortgage, the average is $5,235. We're actually looking pretty good right now, but again, we don't know what kind of assistance we would need to provide in November, December, or what we've provided in October, or how many people need our assistance.
And once again, you're talking a differential of $2,000 between what has been budgeted and the average expenditure.
I think that's close enough. You're not going to pinpoint it.
yeah, because you just
The,
don't
the,
know.
the one big number is the fuel assistant, and we have 5,000 budgeted. And simply from having listened to the weather reports,
Well, it depends on fuel assistance. With the
Well-
state, their money keeps getting cut too, so they
Exactly.
can't give as much.
so, yes, we've been lucky. The townspeople have been lucky. But that $5,000 in December could disappear.
Exactly. One hard winter, the economy tanks, people lose jobs, they're looking for assistance.
Exactly. Or you have one really bad snowstorm, like the ice storm we had a couple of years ago, and people in town who are not salaried personnel and are out of work for 3 or 4 days suddenly can't make a, touch wood that we haven't had something like the ice storm or some of the late December snowstorms we've had in the past few years. We didn't have one last year. But this is one budget that it's easy for me to defend. These are people that really, they don't come to the town because it's free.
Yeah, and I said it last week, I'm not picking on this budget. I'm just saying that we kind of need to, and maybe we're going to say, you know, we're not going to change anything here. But kind of like this exercise we undertook, and some people will probably be mad at me as I utter this phrase, we might want to do it for every budget. We might want to take a 5-year look back on everything to see what was spent. Because I just did that formula I was talking about, and for this particular one, there are negligible difference, you know,
Well, exactly.
for this one. But we might find in other budgets, it's not this. It's
Yeah,
not the
and
same.
and the exercise isn't a bad thing to do. I've actually done this exercise a couple of years ago
Mhm.
with the
Yeah.
comparisons between proposed, expended, and
Yeah.
One of the things that would be beneficial is maybe if we think of budgeting impact when we're doing pay raises, because that is the biggest individual cost of collected lines in our entire budget.
I mean, this year, it's going to be the primary reason for increases, right?
Well, exactly.
You know, so, and that's one of the reasons I'm concerned. I mean, granted, we all know, right, that if they're already locked in before the end of the year, that we don't have to worry about those, but it's going to hit other things in the budget, so.
Well, what it does is it makes us look at other areas in the budget to try to bring the numbers down so that we're not expending that much more than the default. You know, we need to sometimes be a little bit more realistic.
all right, so we don't have any more discussion on that particular spreadsheet, correct?
Nope.
All right, so we now want to move on to, find it, just lost it. Our next item. There we go. Okay, our next item, review sealed bids. Can I have a couple envelopes here?
So the one Matt has
Is
has
this-
4 of them.
From Ford,
No,
the same
that's-
person?
Same person, you only have 3 bids,
Okay.
okay?
They
And
were
there are 4 copies
required.
in each one.
They were
Got it.
required for 3.
Individual copies as opposed to 4 copies in one
Correct.
envelope.
Right.
All right, so you can have that one.
You only need,
So-
just open one.
Yeah, so these are sealed bids for the 2020 statistical revaluation, which we are going to need to do next year.
Oh, can I
Warning to our residents.
recommend that we don't announce dollar amounts, but we'll
No,
do-
we just announced who they're from at the moment.
Okay.
And then we'll have, just like we always do, have a spreadsheet prepared.
I don't understand why you don't announce the amounts. I'm just asking the question, why not?
Can do one or the other, right?
Yeah, I don't know why you don't announce it.
We can do name only, or we do amount only.
True.
Amount is more relevant to people watching.
I mean, at least you give them something, giving the people something, or what, you
Yeah.
know, well, what are they talking about in amounts?
I don't mind doing the amount. I mean,
Yeah, I was just going to say, I thought you had to announce
We,
the amount of the bid.
no,
No,
not
we typically, when
necessarily.
we open them, we're saying, this is who we got the bids from.
And we have to
Then we get a
compare.
spreadsheet
Yeah.
What's the
that does
that's
the
what I'm saying, but-
comparison of all of them.
Not all be voting or bidding on the same thing. So you got to make sure they're apples for apples.
And this is why we then send them over to our secretary, who compiles the spreadsheet for us of the different bids and what's the same and what's different. And then we discuss and we announce what the amounts are and what makes them different at our next meeting.
We'll just name in the company.
I mean,
Just
that's
open the
how,
bids, that's it.
Huh?
Just open the bids.
Oh, we're not saying
that's it.
nothing.
no, we say
You
who.
got to say who they're from.
Yeah, we're saying who they're from.
So we'll receive a bid for the statistical reevaluation from Cochran Consulting Associates out of Wolfeboro Falls, New Hampshire.
And what that does is, for anyone who has submitted a bid, or think they submitted a bid, they know we received their bid.
Yep.
Okay?
You got correct.
I was yelled at once for opening it
Put it back in your book.
without being instructed to, so can I open it?
You may open it.
I'm not sure I'm gonna get this one open without a knife or something.
Yeah, I was just going to say, they do a really good job of sealing.
All right, so while you're opening that, we'll hear from Jim.
I need assistance to
You
open
could
that one.
just tear the top, can't you?
Come on, Matt.
I don't wanna hurt anything.
Can I have that one, because I have no idea what he said for a name.
Cochran. Yes.
Cochran here.
I'm just having to double check the,
Double checking what?
I'm looking for the,
Vendor name?
okay, it is Vision.
Vision.
That's either a coffee stain emblem or it's an O at the beginning.
I don't think it's
It
an
isn't,
O.
it
Yeah.
isn't.
You can
Um,
finish
this
that
is-
up now, right?
There's a RFP from Vision Government Solutions, Inc.
So Vision Government Solutions, Inc.,
Right,
out of where?
out of Hudson, Mass.
Okay.
Hudson, Mass, okay. Pass them on down.
This one doesn't have a vendor name on the cover.
Look on the front of the envelope.
Looks like A.S. Louis, L-E-W-Y.
That's it.
That's that one.
Where's that one out of?
Nottingham.
Okay, so independent contractor, A.S. Louis.
Yeah, just should be a CV back here with a town. Nottingham, New Hampshire.
There we go. All right, so we've gotten everybody. We will pass these down so that they can now be compiled. Can I have the other envelope too,
Jim, pass yours down.
Thank you. There we go. All right, our next item, per RSA 31:95-B, to accept and expend unanticipated funds to the food pantry. So can I get a motion?
Madam Chair, I move in accordance with RSA 31:95- small letter B, to accept the amount of $210.50 from the Recreation Commission
Second.
as a donation to the food pantry.
Okay. Seconded by Larry. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
And that is with our thanks to the Recreation Commission?
Was this from the Newton?
I
From the
believe
old
so,
home day,
yeah.
yes.
Yep.
Yep. From the raffles, I believe it was. Next item on our agenda is limiting expenditures for, it says it's remainder of year. Sorry about that.
Sorry.
However, this is that time of year again where, we're getting close to the ends of our budget. We need to start keeping a closer eye of what people are spending. And we,
I'll make a motion, we'll see if it flies. Madam Chair, I move to place a spending freeze on all town budgets, no expenditure to exceed $500 without the express authority by the Board of Selectmen.
Second for discussion. Now, I know the controversy comes up, what specifically, is that a one line item expenditure? Is that a complete expenditure? I believe the fire chief last year had some things going on with one of the trucks that equated to more than $500, and he came in for each line. I'm vaguely remembering this, so we just need to be clear what that equates to.
That equates to, my interpretation, try to come up with a department.
Larry, we give that to Lisa.
No one, the fire chief comes in and he wants to buy 4
That was
new
last year, Lisa.
uniform jackets, and they're $275 each. No, he can't buy all 4 of them because each individual item is on
Actually, 2 years ago, but
It's the
okay.
total of the bill.
Last year.
The year before.
Right.
Unless it-
Selectman Doggett moved to place a spending freeze on all town budgets not to exceed $500 effective December 5th, unless authorized by the board, seconded by, so exactly what you,
Yeah,
I made the same motion
yeah,
2 years ago.
So it is, and it was. with the
However,
union.
tonight's is not date specific because that can be,
So I think what I added last year, it's, again, my memory always comes, these things, immediately I remember something I haven't thought about in a year. I think what I added last year, friendly amendment, is if there are any questions about whether it's line item encompassing or whatever, the chair can make that call so that there's no time wasted between meetings for them to buy what they need to buy.
Or an emergency situation.
Or an
that can't
emergency.
wait.
To use Jim's example, you know, if a call had to be made on that, I think the chair can turn around and say, no, that's okay. You can, we didn't mean it in that context. I think what we're worried about is, you know, $500 radios for 10 trucks. Each of, I do one on Monday, one on Tuesday, one on Wednesday, you know what I mean? That's what we're worried about, yeah.
my example was on the same idea, is
yeah.
that bill shouldn't, that
Yeah.
order shouldn't be put in
Yeah,
because, gee, the total bill, so I'm not going to order the jackets separately.
yeah.
I'm going to go to the selectmen and say, yes, the money's in my budget.
Unless there's, I mean, any invoice that's already out there or purchase order
Well,
that's already out there is already
exactly.
covered.
Now,
So if I muddled that
Yep.
motion, I would just, then I would, well, friendly amendment to the motion, any questions can be answered by the chairman, by the chair.
So would you make that effective tonight? So that way nobody's running out
I
to
know, exactly, we probably
purchase
should,
everything at once?
probably should. Cat's out of the bag.
yeah, I will rescind my original motion. I'll make a fresh one.
Any invoices that come in after today?
Only because, okay, I will move to place a spending freeze on all town budgets not to exceed $500 effective 11/5/19 unless authorized by the Board of Selectmen. Period.
Or chairman?
That doesn't actually belong in the motion. That belongs to
It's
simply in the
kind
discussion.
of like the board saying, okay, we approve of this selectman going and speaking to this person, kind of
Right.
thing. You know, we don't make a motion to say, hey, Jim, go talk to transfer
Second.
station.
Yeah.
Right, so we got a second by Matt.
Second,
Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Now I'll make a comment that unless anybody has any objections on the board, the chairman has the ability to arbitrate.
Any purchases that are time sensitive
Right.
and over $500.
Right.
Is that a motion?
No,
No.
this is looking for a general consensus from the board. And
That's why I didn't say, I
I don't
moved,
care.
I
think
said
it should be
unless
any one of
anybody
us, and we're
objects.
all on the same level, but it doesn't matter, whatever.
Just trying to make things easier for department heads so they're not stuck for 2 weeks
right,
waiting.
in having one contact person for all, at least,
Whatever, it doesn't matter, that's fine.
it just makes sense to me that Matt and Jim's suggestion, because then if we're getting a lot of requests, they may go to one selectman here, one selectman there, one selectman over there, but if they have to funnel all requests
Through the
to
chair,
one
that
person,
hopefully will have.
catch on to the fact that there's been a lot of requests.
Well, not only that, but it's one interpretation of, is it $500 per individual item on the?
Yep.
Is it $500 for the total?
And is it necessary that it can't wait for a board meeting? You know, that, you know, so time sensitive that it can't wait, or that sort of thing there. Because anything time sensitive, it's like, you know, if you want to purchase that, then you don't have to do it today.
Some light items, they wait to the end of the year. Like on EMS, he does a bulk order in December, and it's gonna be over $500.
And that is
Right.
not a good thing, because now we don't have invoices, now we have to encumber all this.
No,
Yeah.
he orders it in December, it comes
Yeah,
in in
but you
December.
don't get the bill right away.
Yeah, you do, you get it in December, I just said that. Yeah, it's
Okay.
EMS supplies, it comes like next week, the week after.
So he'll come to me.
Okay. let's-
Whatever, move on.
All right, so that's covered. Next item, other business.
I just wanted to throw out there, so as I talked about last week, we are planning a Veterans Pancake Breakfast for Monday, November 11th. So it's this coming Monday, 10 a.m. for the breakfast, 11:11 for the ceremony. However, as I mentioned last week, we've only had 13 tickets accounted for now. So we invited everybody that we knew of who's a veteran through US mail. We put it on social media, on the website, on cable. So talking with Diane, there comes a kind of go, no-go decision here. Probably Thursday, we'll have to make that before the shopping. The 13 people are probably very enthusiastic about doing this, but there's a lot of work that goes into it. So I think based on Diane's recommendation, the number 25 should be the decision point. If there are people waiting out there, hopefully 12 more people out there that want tickets, please call or come down tomorrow, and then we can, you know, move on if we have 25. However, reason I'm bringing it up again to the board is, what I think we should do is, let's say it's Thursday, we decide we're going to cancel the breakfast. I still think we should hold the ceremony, because that's doesn't cost us anything. We could move the ceremony, do it right out here if we wanted to, or 8 Merrimack Road like we did one year. But could we turn around and have a little extra time? We could find a restaurant somewhere locally, and those 13 or however many it is under 25 by then, we could, the Board of Selectmen could bring them to breakfast, or maybe it's lunch, who knows, at a local restaurant as a thanks to veterans. So we'd still be doing it, it'd be a lot less work, probably the budget would be the same, pretty close. Is the board supportive of that? And we'd pick a date, and we wouldn't obviously be able to do it on the 11th.
Yeah, I was just going to say,
We'd have to pick a date in November sometime, you know, a good day to do it.
I have no problem with that idea. Actually, it sounds quite nice. However, it's one of those things that the cutoff is, you know, close of business tomorrow. Those are the people that would be going to dinner. It's not all of a sudden,
Yeah, right, exactly.
yeah,
Yeah,
they're going to
because then we have 50
breakfast
people
at the
going.
Roma, and
Right,
suddenly,
right.
We wouldn't be doing breakfast at the Roma.
I'm not even certain they serve it. However, Diane, I know you sent out the cards because I watched you and Mary Jo. Careful. How many cards did you send out?
180.
There you go.
Okay. Yeah, we're not taking 180 people.
Right. So what I would do is, what I would suggest, I should say, is let's stick with your plan of November 7th for the cutoff. Who's ever, if it's 24, you know, that number 25 is our number. Let's contact them. I assume we have some way to contact
Yeah,
them.
I've been collecting
Yeah.
their phone numbers.
So we can contact them specifically and say, November 11th, the food portion is off, but this is what we're going to do instead. And you and I can talk about some options. I'll sign up, I'm sure she won't mind, Christine from the rec to help us out because she knows all the restaurants and where she can get a deal for a group. So I'm sure she'd love to help us nail down a place, so,
Yeah, it's a shame Bessie's closed down.
yeah.
Can I
Is this
ask a
closed?
question?
Oh,
If we don't use the school, do we get our refund back?
I hope so.
I hope so, too.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
That would help pay for
So,
some of the food.
Right, exactly.
yeah, that's something.
well,
we-
especially since
Confirm.
we're not waiting until Monday to cancel. If we
Yeah.
cancel ahead, they should be able to cancel the custodian.
Yeah,
Yeah, but we should get confirmation that
Yep.
it will be refunded.
Well, I'll say I hope so, because we're all on the same team,
yeah.
so.
Can't guarantee that.
Okay, our next item, announcements. Officer Druin has resigned as a full-time police officer and has been hired as a part-time police officer. So I'd say welcome to the force, but he's already here.
Let the
Well,
force
he-
be with you.
And I would like to announce that we have received the resignation of our building inspector, code enforcement officer. We appreciate everything that he's done in the past 6 months. Close enough. Next item is, we'll hold off on this one at Larry's request until we get confirmation from the chief.
Well, Nancy said, go ahead and do it, I don't care.
Is that, if
Go
you
ahead.
go on the share, you'll see the
Yeah,
letter
no,
that the
I
person-
The
saw
letter
it.
of resignation.
That's why,
He was just saying he should have brought it to us, that's all.
Oh, okay, so we have received a
E&D is
resignation
one, right?
from
That's fine.
firefighter,
Hustler.
He's not an EMT
and
either.
he is just a firefighter EMD driver. No, just firefighter driver.
Yeah, yeah.
Yep. So firefighter slash driver, Bruce Guzzler has resigned.
Junior.
It is junior?
There's a senior,
Okay,
too.
so senior's still with us, but here it is. It just didn't say junior on the email, so.
Oh, okay.
But his, let's see, he's been with us for 11 years, and he's finding it difficult to meet the requirements for the position now. So I would like to accept his resignation.
To accept the resignation of,
With appreciation for all the years he has given to the department.
most certainly.
Right. Do we have a second by Larry? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Oh, actually, we should accept the resignation of,
I was going to say that too, but the previous resignation, I don't think we're accepting a resignation.
technically, he is going to contract essentially. Actually, he'll still be a part-time.
So it's not a resignation.
Yeah, it's not a, it's a change technically for right now.
I think we should strike this from the agenda.
Yep, until we can clarify what it actually is, because he is not completely done yet.
okay, so.
So we're
That's the building
scratching this
inspector.
off until we can
Okay.
properly announce what it is that he is now.
Okay,
Okay?
what he is.
I think that's the right way to put it,
Yeah.
right? Okay,
Status change.
yes,
Basically.
there we go, a status change, just like Druin was.
Okay.
Madam Chairman, I'll move to approve the public and non-public minutes dated October 29th, 2019.
Second.
Any discussion, errors, omissions? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Then we have the manifest and credit. Everybody have it pulled up?
They're in the folder.
Right here, if you,
Madam Chair, make a motion to sign vendor manifest dated November 5th, 2019, in the amount of $110,717.39.
Second.
any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
I make a motion to accept veterans tax credit, sign the veterans tax credit for map 8-2-17-7 for tax year 2020.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right, and I don't think anyone has come back and said that they've seen any need to unseal any of our non-public minutes, so we will move onward.
Move to adjourn.
At 8:44 PM. Thank you, everyone.